with us is Pierse. He's a partner at Borderless Ventures and director at the CryptoAssets Institute. He held a great lecture yesterday about the motivation in general for students. Ethan, do you like the conferences lately?
Yeah, it's always fun to meet this many young entrepreneurs. But today, a lot of entrepreneurs are young in entrepreneurship, but they might not be young in age. So we're seeing in startups, we're seeing founders potentially being older and older, especially as you solve bigger problems in fintech or in insurance or in a lot of the deeper tech spaces where you have to have advanced degrees. You can't be 20 years old and start some of those companies because you haven't done the work experience yet to kind of learn about that stuff. But what I love about conferences like this is to meet so many people who are working on whether it's social entrepreneurship or other ideas that they can engage with now at their age, and it's just fun to be around that kind of energy and motivation. So no, it's been a great surprise. Not really a surprise in the sense that I didn't expect it, but you never really know with conferences that you haven't been to what the dynamic is like, and this has been really fun. A lot of great people with some really cool stories and doing some very neat things.
I was actually at your presentation, and the audience was amazed by the presentation.
Yeah.
What did you actually talk about?
So the keynote was around, it was kind of two subjects, but they're very much similar in that the first piece was just general entrepreneurship, kind of reflections on things you would like to know now that you will know in a couple of years after you've done things the wrong way. If you know them now, maybe you won't do them, you'll be able to do them better. It's just experience things. And then venture building as the other piece. So just again, some reflections on common misconceptions about growing a scalable company and the things that you should really be focusing on. So try to be very motivating without being negative, but at the same time, I think it's important to have kind of a no bullshit approach to entrepreneurship, because there's too many people who give really fluffy advice and really make it sound super fun and very easy, and oh, isn't it great that I'm an entrepreneur? And if you love entrepreneurship, it is a wonderful thing, but it is also potentially very complicated. It's very hard, but it's also very rewarding. So I think maybe that's why it resonated with a lot of the people who were there. It was the simple fact that it was authentic in the sense of real advice that maybe they could already relate to, but they could see the value in.
As you said, there are many startups here at Leap. What types of startups tend to have a greater chances of actually being successful?
So one of the things that I highlighted a bit in the keynote that I think is important is you have to be, almost all companies need to be international in scale. So unless you're very much solving a local problem that is just so different that it doesn't exist in the same way elsewhere. But even then, the problem is, even if you solve that problem, are there enough people that have it for you to turn that into a business? So I think that it's very hard in countries, even in France where I live, where it's you've got 65 million people. That's actually not enough to scale a lot of SaaS or platform type companies, because yeah, that's a lot of people, but that's everyone. And then there's the people who are interested in what you do. And then there's the people who are interested in what you do who are actually going to pay for it. And when you start doing that math, you don't actually always end up with an awful lot of people who can be your clients. So I think there are two ways to approach that. The first is you attack something as a problem that you can scale internationally. Or a couple of the projects that I've seen here are doing things in Croatia that are being done elsewhere, but have not yet been done here. For me, the business model in that is to grow that and be very good about how you do it here, because then you're going to sell it to the people who are doing it somewhere else. But if you don't grow it here quickly, they're going to come and they're going to build it here instead. So it's potential that you can build something small in terms of market opportunity, but that's because there's a bigger market somewhere else you can sell it to. But we're still at the international discussion. It's still solving a scalable problem, because when you want to raise money, when you want to hire the best employees you can possibly find, when you want to be able to go after best-in-class clients, all these things happen because you're solving a problem that many people have that is scalable to many more people. Without that, you just can't, there can't be enough capital and there can't be enough interest. So there's a ton of things we can talk about along the idea of how that works, but one of the biggest reasons that startups, I think, are frustrated in their growth is they're working on either small problems, which unfortunately cannot get enough people to be motivated about them, or they're working on problems that they're passionate about, but just not enough people actually are interested in. So for me, the scale size of that is probably the most important piece. The second side of that, just because I think it's important, is timing. We talk a lot about team, we talk a lot about idea, we can talk a lot about funding, and we can talk a lot about execution. These things are all very important. But when you look at a lot of the big companies that have scaled massive things, and not everything has to become a huge company, but even to become a medium-sized company, you have to get something really right in terms of market opportunity and all the resources that you would need to grow that. So timing is actually the big thing that matters in most of these cases, because you can have a great idea but be too early, and you spend a lot of money trying to get people to care, but they don't. Then people finally care, and somebody else gets it right, and then startups come along and try and do it again. Now they're too late. So all the things like a great idea, a fantastic team, lots and lots of funding, and great execution are all important potentially, but if you're at the wrong time, it won't work. People think that money fixes everything, and funding doesn't actually work. There are countless examples, if we look at just the US, of companies that raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and they were 2, 3, 4 years before somebody else who raised maybe less capital got it right. It's all timing. So I think international scale, because that gives you opportunity, and being just a little bit ahead of whenever it's going to matter, but then it really happens at the moment that all these things collide. If you're way too early or way too late, it won't work.
Is there actually a formula to recognize the perfect timing?
I don't know. I think that's why we talk about the MVP kind of process in startups, of coming up with kind of this, there's lots of phrases, but like the product market fit idea, but everything around this lean approach to saying, this is what we think, let's go meet people who could pay for it or could be interested in it and see what they think. Are we building something they care about? If they do, we're probably getting the timing right. So now we just have to figure out, are we building the right functions and the right solution that they would pay for? If whenever you go talk to people, they're like, what? I'm not really sure what that is, or why would you pay for that? Or then if you're feeling that people don't even understand what you're doing, then you're not going to spend a lot of your money and time scaling your solution. You're going to spend a lot of your money and time educating people that they need it. And that's a great way to spend a lot of money and not make much. So once people start to get it, then you're able to use most of your capital to actually scale your solution. So there is no formula for that, but you can feel it if you're actually getting out of the office and talking to people who are your potential clients or customers, and based on that demographic, do they get it? Because if they don't, and if you have to explain it to them, you might be too early.
You're actually highly involved in the new Silicon Valley fund that is focused on artificial intelligence and deep tech.
Okay. Yep.
Which recent breakthroughs in machine learning do you believe is the most promising for the future?
So what I would say is interesting about where everything's at with deep tech now. I mean, we're seeing it more and more. A lot of the AI and machine learning we've seen up until now that's been interesting consumer-wise has been like chatbots and stuff that's very lightweight, not terribly interesting, hasn't gotten a lot of traction because it's not terribly interesting. Those solutions will evolve and become more interesting. I think there's a lot of cool things coming. We're starting to see companies working on really integrating AI algorithms and machine learning into physical chips that will become smaller and smaller so that every object can become very smart, not because it's necessarily connected, but because internally it now has AI or machine learning technology kind of baked in. I think we're going to see a lot of things that just become smarter naturally. Like maybe your alarm clock that just kind of figures out that you always click the button to sleep in an extra 6 minutes, so maybe it decides to wait a little while before it wakes you up, or like things that are simple solutions that right now those things are dumb devices and they don't need to become very smart, but they could learn a little, and so I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff, and it doesn't all have to be connected to a constant service like the cloud where it's actually sending, or like Siri or these kind of things that send a lot of that information out to the cloud to have it analyzed to send it back. We're going to be baking that technology into our devices fairly soon. I think quantum computing is where a lot of this will end up changing, because the problem with machine learning and AI is Brilliant people have come up with the ideas and the algorithms to do lots of amazing things. We just don't have the computational power to do as much of that as we want to yet. So we're getting there. But I would say that the thing is we're just seeing a tremendous amount of people realize that we are getting very close to everything being able to learn on its own in small ways, and those small ways will become bigger ways. So it's not any specific advance, I think, in AI or machine learning that matters. It's just that it's advancing so incredibly quickly. So it'll keep advancing, and quantum computing is also, the breakthroughs are coming quickly. Add those things together, and within 5 years, I think we're going to be just shocked from how intelligent our devices have become, thanks to all of those things finally getting to that place. It's almost there, I would say. Lots of things happening that haven't become public or not quite ready to be deployed, but it's lots of great innovation in this space.
So basically the technology will change our everyday.
Well, I think the issue is just that I think we already have so much technology around our lives that our lives are already kind of changed on a daily basis by all the things that we use. But when those devices become smarter in a good way, where that they're able to anticipate or to help us without us asking for it for every little thing, that's going to be another fundamental shift in how we feel technology changing our lives. So yeah, I think we're not far from that. And that's why I love Central and Eastern Europe, because a lot of deep tech, for me, deep tech right now is France, it's Central and Eastern Europe, and it's Israel. And this is where it's all happening. So the US has GAFA with Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon. China has BATX with Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and Xiaomi. Europe hasn't had these big platforms that have scaled to become massive, but I think the AI, machine learning, deep tech wave that's coming, you guys are going to own this, and that's exciting.